If you have to attend one Vichar Manthan program this year, this is it. We have a perfect group of people sitting here. Very difficult to put together these three people in one stage. Let me start with Vivek ji. People know him as film director, film producer, script writer, very modern director. He's got taken movie in multiple genres: thriller, sports, political drama, erotica, romance. What you don't know is he has been doing research for the past 7 or 8 years on political and social development in India. This crowd, we need to get that knowledge from him, and Vichar Manthan is a perfect opportunity to get it out of it. By the way, he recently joined, I think, CBFC, Central Board of Film Censor. That's a good news. So the movie clip you just saw, the Buddha in a traffic jam. Great movie. But do you think this movie is controversial to be banned, censored? It was censored. It was banned, not by the government, but by a group of minority, violent folks in academia and politics. They won't let this movie to be shown in, imagine, JNU. Yeah, I can see that. How about IIT Madras? When he went to show this movie in Jadavpur University, he got banged up. I mean, real violence, that his car got banged up. And there was a real fear among students, something major is going to happen. So they have to show the movie on a dhoti in a playground, and they have to leave the university as soon as it's ended, so that nobody else will get injured. Still, after he left, the students who organized the movie got beaten up. There is a violence there. That violence is perpetrated by implicit and explicit enablement and support of academia and the administrators of the university. It is very, very important for us to know the background of the story, because it is going to impact the life of every Indian in the future. It is going to stop the development in India. Look at West Bengal, look at Kerala. The ideology that stops the development there is spreading. I went to Tamil Nadu 3 weeks ago. There was a village called Kadiramangalam. There is a ONGC plant there. It has been operating for more than 10 years. Now there is a violent protest to stop the development in the village. So I asked them, if you stop this development, you are going to lose the job. The driver who was driving me the taxi, I asked him, why do you support ONGCs to get out of this village? I don't need a job. Then how are you going to feed yourself? Well, government is giving us enough money for essential living, that's good enough. That is the wrong mindset they are creating among the new generation. If that happens, Tamil Nadu will become like West Bengal. And whole India can spread. More importantly, in America there is something called First Amendment right. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Even if you disagree with somebody, you need to let them speak and then hear, have a civilized discourse. That is being stopped in India today. And in all the places in the ivory towers, like JNU and IITs and Jadavpur universities, That is where the knowledge is supposed to be created, that's where the knowledge is being stopped. It is a very, very bad news. So rather than film director, I would like to remember him as a freedom director. Rather than a film personality, I would like to remember him as a freedom leader. And he wants freedom from inefficiency, incompetence, and mediocrity. That is very important. That is very, very important. So he has proven himself that he deserves the name Vivek. Vivek means wisdom. He is in Vichar, Manthan, right? So some people may have a name Dharma Raj, but that person has become a minister and lives like, I have nothing to do with Dharma. But this Vivek is not like that. And then Pallavi Joshi. I can't believe God can put so much talent in one body and one mind. It's all packed, sitting there. She's an actress, model, producer, TV serial host. I mean, I can't even see all whatever she's doing. And she's acted in Hindi, Malayalam, Kannada, Marathi movies. What happened to Tamil movies? And she has won many awards, Special Jury Award in National Film Award Ceremony, Excellence in Cinema Award. She is beautiful both inside and outside. Vivekji, you're a great guy, but you suddenly married up when it comes to Pallavi. All right. So, we have a local hero. He is Professor Vamsee Juluri. Now, he's a professor of media studies in University of San Francisco. He's got a PhD from University of Massachusetts on mass communication. He is a very rare Indian tenured professor in humanities in India. When I say rare Indian, there are a lot of Indian tenured professors in humanities, but he is a very rare non-Marxist. Why is he perfect for this particular Vichar? He has written 4 books. 2 of them are directly related to this topic, as well as to their chief guest. Bollywood Nation, India through its cinema. We know cinema is one of the very important cultural and artistic form today, and somebody has to do research and see the impact of cinema on India. It is perfect. Vamsee has done it. And he's also written a book called Rearming Hinduism, Nature, History and Return of Indian Intelligence. Vivek is fighting for this return of Indian intelligence against inefficiency, against incompetency, for freedom from mediocrity. Who else from academic world, somebody wants to return to Indian intelligence? From the film world, somebody is really working on the grassroots level. If they talk in front of us, this is the best time we can get the knowledge at this particular event. So with that, I'm concluding my introduction. Thank you. Looking forward to a conversation.
Namaskar. Thank you for inviting us here at such a short notice. And I would like to thank Vijay Simha ji, Sanjay Tripathi ji, of course Vamsee ji, Vichar Manthan, Maratha Mandal, and young fellow Alakshend Khare, who took this initiative, and out of a very busy schedule, he said, no, you have to take out a couple of hours. It's always a delight to be talking to Indian community outside India. Because when you are part of a problem, it's very difficult to see the problem and to solve it. But when you are outside of the problem, and you can see it from outside, you look at it differently and it's easier to find solutions to problems. And India is a problematic country. We have lots of problems from inside and outside both. And therefore, I travel a lot, and wherever I go, I really, of course, people who came here in 70s and 80s, of course, you have created a very strong foundation. But what is giving me a lot of hope is the new young generation which is coming from India. The way they have taken India, Indian values, the heritage, culture, on the forefront on social media. For that, I want to thank all of them. Now, today's theme which has been given to me is the dominant narratives in India and free speech in that context. I was planning to go little academic because the professor is here, so I thought it's going to be little academic, but in the morning, today when Simha ji and Tripathi ji and Khare Saab, they came and met me, they showed me a presentation. And after that, I was a little disturbed. And I thought that we have to understand who creates the narrative. Because unless and until so far, what has been happening in this world, that we have been fighting narratives with people who talk, people who sit and do anchoring. We have been fighting with people who are just mouthpieces without understanding that who's actually creating that narrative. Like if you understand who's responsible for the Gulf War, who's responsible, who is masterminding terrorism, it's easy to finish it. But there, in a film like, there was a film Usual Suspects, there was a dialogue in that, I remember, it says, the biggest trick the devil plays, that it makes you believe that it does not exist. I hope you understand what I am saying. शैतान की सबसे बड़ी खासियत यह है कि वो आपको कन्विंस कर देता है कि वो एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता है. इसी तरह से people who actually create narratives also make you believe that they do not exist. So therefore it's very important to identify them, and then only you can challenge narratives which do not suit us, our culture, our heritage, our progress. So for that you have to understand the villain. If there is goodness, if there is Ram Raj, why are we discussing? There is no need to talk. We can just go and home and party. But there is a problem. So who is that villain? So in next 15-20 minutes, I am going to take you through a journey. You have to understand the villain of Indian films of Bollywood. If you really want to understand the socio-political evolution of modern India, independent India, you have to study the villain of Bollywood. And once you understand the villain of Bollywood, you'll exactly be able to understand where the problem lies. So I'll very quickly, it can take hours and weeks and months to explain this theory, but I'll tell you very briefly. If you look at Indian films, pre-independence, before independence, when Britishers were ruling us, people who are blamed to whitewash our history, to whitewash our culture and heritage, people who are blamed for that, when they were ruling India, we were making mythological films. We were making films about Bhagwan Ram. We were making film about Raja Harishchandra. We were making film about Indian women, Aurat and all those films if you look at them. We were making films anti-Sati Pratha. We were making films about India, about Indians and Indian mythology, Indian culture, everything about India. Yes, we were not making films against British people, but we were making films which were Indian in thought. Then we got independence. And then a very interesting journey begins. If you look at the films of 1950s, let's take that decade. Who's the villain in those films? Zamindar, the landlord. You'll always find this landlord, his son comes in a jeep or on a horse, he goes and he rapes all the young girls of poor farmers. He kicks this old skeleton kind of a farmer, he takes away their jewelry, their land, and he exploits everybody. And then what happens? A common guy, a common person, a farmer's son or a teacher's son, he rises up and he fights the son of this, the rapist son of this person, and he fights the zamindar and he brings about social justice. This was 50s. New India, after independence, people wanted to get rid of this zamindari system and they were fighting it. Then the same zamindar in the 60s becomes a mill owner. Because what happened in real India, that these people actually, the zamindars, because they had money and a lot of land, so they started giving this land to mill owners and they themselves became mill owners and they started exploiting again the poor labor class. So again films were made against those exploitations, and in these films you will find the villain is always mill owner. The mill owner. And who's fighting? किसी एक मजदूर का बेटा, some labor son, again a poor person from middle class, small towns, Hindi speaking, chappal पहनने वाला, a cultured who goes before interview, he touches his mother's feet and then he goes and he gives interviews. That kind of a person became the hero who fought against this villain. Then comes 70s. The same mill owner now becomes a sahukar. You know sahukar, people who lend money, money lenders. He became a sahukar. He became a dalal. If you look, I don't know, people who have seen films of those times, Jeevan and Satyen Kapoor and lot of actors played those kind of roles. They were sahukars. And what in most of the films that you'll find is a very common thing, that they will lend money. When the poor guy cannot return money, then he goes and gets his daughter and he rapes her or ill-treats her. And then again a common man stands up, a postman's son or a teacher's son or a clerk's son, again a common young boy who cannot afford money for his mother's surgery, for his father's medicines. He gets up and he fights this money lender against the system. Then comes mid-70s post-emergency. And here what I want to tell you, and what is happening in 50s to 60s and until 70s, the films were funded, and it's very important to understand, the films were funded by the filmmakers themselves. What they were doing, they had their own studios. Look at Bimal Roy. You look at Raj Kapoor, you look at Guru Dutt, you look at Devanand, you look at all these people, they had their own studios. They used to borrow money, take that risk, make money, make films in their studio, therefore they had independent voice. Do you know the entire post-independence film movement in India was run by communists? Your filmmakers were communists, Bimal Roy, Guru Dutt, Raj Kapoor, he was also, his father was from it. All these filmmakers of that time were communists. Sahir Udyanvi, Kafi Azmi. But what they were doing, they were against the system. They were making movies which were against the system, against the establishment, against the exploitative rich class, but they were never against India. They were never against Hindus. In fact, in old films, if you see so much of Indian culture, today if you want the cultural songs, if you want really patriotic songs, you have to go pre-70s. Pre-70s, where women were respected. So many films in this country have been made for women empowerment. Nowhere in the world history of cinema, any society or country has made as many as India has made. The role of mother, the role of a sister. In which other society you will find films which are called Dost, Choti Bahu, Sauteli Maa, Dostana, Yarana, on friendship, on sisters, Behan, Choti Behan, I've seen that film, on sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, everything about family, people, society, and the oppression of poor downtrodden. We have made films against them. Raj Kapoor, Guru Dutt, Bimal Roy, any director or filmmaker worth his salt, if you remember, Yash Chopra, all their films always had a social message. Now comes 70s. Urbanization has started post-emergency. The government is nationalizing everything. Government is taking control. Indira Gandhi's government is taking control of banks, of institutions. A new villain emerges. The new villain now is not a sahuka. The new villain now is the police officer, the politician. These are the people who started controlling all the institutions, and then emerges a new hero. He is now an urban hero. He is not Dilip Kumar or Raj Kapoor, जो बैल और किसान जो बैल चला रहे हैं, और Manoj Kumar. He is an urban guy who wears denims. His name is Amitabh Bachchan. Why I am saying Amitabh Bachchan? Because he represents films of those times. And this angry urban youth, but again a middle class, मजदूर का बेटा, टीचर का बेटा, दीनानाथ टीचर का बेटा, always representing common man in the films, and now he is fighting the MLAs, the corrupt police officers, all these middlemen in between. But still, we are fighting the oppression, the ills of the society. Who are financing these films? These films are mostly financed by the beneficiaries of Green Revolution, the Punjabi community. That's why you will find suddenly the Indian music converted into Bhangra. If you look at post-70s films, slowly up to 90s, you'll find Bhangra started coming, which was absent absolutely. There was no Bhangra pre-Amitabh Bachchan phase. If you look at it, in Indian music, you won't find Bhangra. Very rarely here, 2-3 gaane honge. Otherwise, you won't find that. You won't find Punjabi weddings. You'll find Bengali weddings, you'll find Muslim weddings, you'll find North Indian weddings. Very rarely pre-70s era, you will find Punjabi weddings. Why? Because those films were financed by these communist people who were into class struggle. And suddenly this new money comes in and they start financing, and that's why so much of Punjabi influence started coming into Hindi film. Nothing against it, great culture. But I'm just trying to tell you who controls the narrative. So when the money changes, the narrative gradually changes. And then comes a small phase of 10 years or so when the villain became the smuggler. In fact, villains are always glorified. If you remember in the history of literature and novels and storytelling, it's always the villain who has to be larger than life, who has to be big and very fascinating, very charming. And when hero goes and fights him, that's how the structure of storytelling is all over the world. But here what happened was that the smuggler, the bad guy, local gunda, that's why you'll find in movies like Tezab, from there onwards, Anil Kapoor and all those people, you'll find the name of villains also change from the Ramdhari Singh and from Indra Pratap Singh Rathore, and all from these names, it changed to Chikna Chappu or Peder Pappu, and all those kind of names started coming into films. And you will find that necessarily it was a very Muslim environment, Islamic environment, and there is a boy who comes, he doesn't fight, he becomes part of them. And then he fights them for betrayal. If you look at all those movies, Company, Satya, Parinda, all those movies, he is not fighting the smuggler because it's wrong for the society. It's not Amitabh Bachchan of Diwar who's fighting that. Now he's fighting the smuggler because the smuggler has betrayed him, or this hero suddenly has an ambition, he wants to become bigger than him. Why? Because now these movies are financed by the mafia itself. The diamond merchants, the mafia, the constructors, people with funny money. So when this new funny money came into pockets and people said, yes, we can do this, that's when they started financing films, and a new chapter in history of Indian cinema started. And when I'm saying cinema always represents the society, a new chapter started in India. There comes a time, and times change now. we get into Shah Rukh Khan age. Why I'm saying SRK, you can divide India into these three parts. And suddenly, from Indian movies, the villain disappeared. Now there is no villain. Who's the villain? Father of a girl. Conflict. Suddenly the conflict became between a boy and a father. Nowhere in the world this happens. Almost all the films we made post Shah Rukh Khan are this thing. He's not responsible for that. Even people like Yash Chopra, who made such powerful, revolutionary films in India, even when it came to relationships, don't forget he made a film like Lamhe. He made a film like Chandni, which were about women, the power. They never looked at women like Sati, they always looked at women like Shakti. If you look at Indian heroines in Indian films of that era, you will find that such power. Mother India was made in that era. Today you think anybody can make Mother India? Because to make Mother India, and Mother India was made by who? Mehboob Saab. Mehboob Saab made that. Today imagine another Mehboob Saab making a Mother India. Impossible. Because it was his money. He could make it. But post mid-90s, the villain disappeared and the hero became an NRI boy. Because now the money started coming from the beneficiaries of Y2K. Right? So you understand who creates those narratives. And from Indian films, India also disappeared. Now he is not a poor man's son. His father is Anupam Kher, who they're sitting wearing DKNY t-shirts, polo t-shirts, drinking beer, and he's saying, yes, go and flirt with that girl. Why flirt? Go and pick her up and bring her back to London. That became a new Indian this thing. Obviously a deprived, poor society, when they saw so much of glamour and richness, went after it. But the film business also changed in the meantime. Indian films which are dependent on Indian box office suddenly started not caring about Indian box office because all the money, all the box office returns started coming from UK, USA and Australia. And what was happening here, that people who came here in 70s, 80s and didn't have much cinema, suddenly the floodgates opened and they thought it's a very good medium to show it to their children to maintain Indian heritage and culture, and I think that's where all of you made a mistake. Because instead of showing real culture and heritage of India, you started showing them a narrative which was controlled by people who had nothing to do with India. And today we are, a couple of years ago, came a time where our films were so bad, so inhuman, so insensitive. We were making fun of gays, we were making fun of cripples, we were making fun of physically challenged people, we were making fun of poor people, we were ridiculing common people in the film. If you see in those films, if a common person walks in and you see any Shah Rukh Khan film and you see how he reacts to them. I'm sorry, I must be hurting some people's emotions. I know there are a lot of fans of Shah Rukh Khan, but it's got nothing to do with the person. I'm talking about the idea. And you will find at the same time, almost at the same time, the common man also disappeared from Indian media. Wherever I go, I ask one question, since you won't know, अगर आपके यहाँ हिंदी channels आती हो तो शायद पता हो. Wherever I go, I ask them, when was the last time you saw any news about Banaras, Visakhapatnam, even Hyderabad, or Jammu, or Guwahati? Never. You will never ever in Indian media, Indian films, Indian literature, nowhere you will find the common man of India today who represents Indian culture, Indian heritage, Indian values. Because the entire narrative in last 10-15 years, I would say specifically from 2004 onwards, is being controlled by a group who's known as the leftists or the liberals or whatever you want to call them, okay, by a set of people who actually are not connected with India at all. There is no poetry in our songs anymore. You go to any party, wherever you go, you look at the kind of songs we play and we ask our children to dance on them. Do you realize what is happening here? Do you realize how Mughals controlled our minds? Do you realize how Britishers control our minds? And do you realize how our minds are again being controlled by everything un-Indian? Look at the recent films. When Harry met Sejal, does it sound like an Indian film? Why Harry has to meet Sejal in Rome and Italy? Why can't Harry meet Sejal on the ghats of Banaras? I have also made that mistake. It's not that I have not done it. I have been part of it. But then I came out of it because I realized that somebody is controlling my mind. And that's exactly what is happening. These mediums are so influential that they start controlling your minds. In last 3-4 years, you will find that something is changing again. Slowly, but things are changing. Now you have films like Bahubali. Now you have films like Ghazi Attack. Ghazi Attack, do you know India actually attacked a Pakistani submarine? I don't know why the government of those days tried to keep it as the biggest secret. Pakistan was saying India destroyed our submarine. The world was saying that India has destroyed our submarine, but Indian government was saying, no, we never did it, we never did it. I don't know who it was upsetting. So we have Ghazi attacks, we have Bahubalis, we have so many themes coming from, and there are some mainstream films like Tannu Weds Mannu, and lots of other films you'll find have again started to find that Indian girl, that Indian boy who actually is Indian. And whatever he does it in India, with his family. Who wants to see a modern nude Buddha in a traffic jam. This film we made in 2011. But no avenue, nobody was willing to accept this film. Who made it happen? Who really made sure that this film comes out? These were not Oxford-educated English-speaking boys and girls. These were Hindi or Tamil or Telugu speaking or Marathi speaking, small town, middle class, young boys and girls, again born into families of teachers. And why I say teacher? Because Sharma ji, jo teacher hote hain hamare, he always represents middle class India. Then again this middle class, small town Indian person is back. May not be in the films, but he's back into shaping the narrative of this country. And that's where I think it's very important that outside India, people who live outside India play a very vital role in this, because you guys know how to communicate in modern environment, which is so digitally strong, and you guys are trained in it. It's time for you to control this narrative and create a new narrative. Now the second thing is free speech. What is free speech? Free speech does not mean you are free to wear anything, does not mean you are free to wear nothing. Similarly, you are free to speak anything does not mean that you are free to hurt everybody. That's not your job. Free speech means, हमारे संस्कृत में कहते हैं सत्य प्रिय वचन. Satya Priya Vachan means if it's true, if it's truth, it should be said in a way that people like it. It should be free, it should be likable. We cannot provoke and we cannot offend people all the time. But somewhere what is happening is that the media, especially the electronic media, is again trying to create a narrative where it is believed that unless and until you attack people, unless and until you abuse people and you outrage, nobody is going to listen to you. And in that competition, the younger generation especially, they are attacking, abusing, outraging. I think we must not do that. And there is a very strong reason for that. Because the Hindu society has always been naturally inclusive. Parsis come to India, we make them part of us. Mughals come to India, we make them part of us. British came to our country, we make them part of us. Which other society in this world? It's a great society, I'm telling you. Don't get, generally people say, yeah, gandagi bahut hai ye. Fine, we are poor country, it's fine, but cross that level. Like in video games, you cross levels, cross that level of ki gandagi hai ya chaos hai, and see the real India. You will find we are one of the greatest cultures and societies in the world. Which other society in this world has invented or created an absolutely new language for the invaders? People who have looted you, people who have raped your women, who has done that? We created Urdu. Do you realize that? Indian society created a new language, Urdu, which takes words from Persian, from Arabic, from Marathi, from Tamil. Do you know in Urdu has a lot of words which have come from South? From all over the people, all the kind of people who lived at that time, all those words and everything we took and we created a new language. Which other society in this world has created so many religions? Which other society has actually created the fundamentals of joint system, and in which other society, tell me, a woman is called Shakti? In America, are women called Shakti by any chance? Or in Britain, the most evolved society, the so-called in the world, are women called Shakti? But because of the mainstream narratives, through films, through media, through literature, all we get to hear today are the negative things about India and Indian society. You say cow, they say you're a regressive admi. You say joint family, they say he's a regressive man. You write about Raksha Bandhan, about his sisters, they say he's a regressive man. Who's attacking this culture? Who's giving us this guilt complex that if you take pride in your heritage and your history, then who are these people who are attacking you? I call them invisible enemies. These invisible enemies, which is the theme of my film also, are amongst us. They are professors, they are journalists, they are influencers of some kind, and they keep telling you this is wrong with you, this is wrong with you, this is wrong with you. When Modi won in India, a lot of people started saying, oh, a lot of uneducated, regressive people have voted for him because they don't know what politics is all about. Now they started making them feel guilty since 2014. They have been coming up with intolerance debate. They are saying India is an intolerant country. Is it? I don't know. I live there. I've never found anybody intolerant to anything. In fact, tolerance is not an Indian word at all. Indian word is acceptance. We accept people the way they are. We accept situations the way they are. Which is why you will find Charva. There was, in ancient times, there was a saint called Charva. He propounded the theory of materialism. He said this life is about, aap jante hi honge bahut sare log, you must be knowing. He said life is about nothing, life is about ghee piyo. They couldn't say at that time ki daru piyo. They said drink ghee and sleep. That's what life is all about. With this kind of a thought process, we gave him the status of Rishi. We call him Rishi Charva. Where else in America if somebody says he just drink alcohol throughout the day and just sleep, will you make him, you won't call him intellectual? Because we accepted all kinds of thought processes and we gave them credibility. So we are a very inclusive, accepting society. But somewhere, I was in the morning, they showed me a presentation and they showed me in school textbooks in California or US? California. They showed me how religions are, because America was trying to be more inclusive, bring in diversity in their textbooks. They showed me 3 pictures. The first page, the picture about Christianity, the Last Supper. That is the picture. The second one was about Islam as a religion. The picture was glorifying the architecture of Islam. The tombs, the big buildings, and how intricate the architecture is. And the third page was about Hinduism. And the picture was a poor boy and a pig and a cow or something near a trash, dirty, ugly trash, poor, naked boys just sitting over there, and they are showing a Brahmin's picture, which is like a shaved head and with a choti here, somebody who existed 2000 years ago, that picture, and they say this is Hinduism. Because, before I finish, I want to tell you why it has happened. While the West, where all these Abrahamic religions, the expansionist religions evolved, these people were exploring the geographical world, the external world, and they were discovering continents or looting continents, whatever. While they were doing all this, finding out about the physical part of the world, what was happening in the East, while they were discovering physical continents, we were discovering the continents of our mind and soul. While they were doing external research, we were doing internal research. We were creating a society, a family system. They were creating arms and the war techniques and war strategies. And because we were not extroverts and did not go outside the boundaries of our own social, geographical boundaries, people did not know much about us. People know about Hinduism and about India, what they come and see, the chaos, the dirt, the filth. We never spoke about ourselves. We never created our own narrative. No power in this world today, I know this business, no power in this world today can come here and destroy Superman from the main narrative of cinema. Nobody can do that. Whenever they show American culture, you find they always bring niceness. They always present American culture, or French people in French culture. They always present their culture, their country, their heritage, their food. All these things in a very glorified manner. We don't do that. We are very embarrassed, very embarrassed. And especially the modern narrative controllers, they are absolutely hateful of anything which is old. In Bollywood, you won't believe it. Today, if you say this man is from Lucknow or from Allahabad and he's a genuine writer or a genuine sahityakar, he will never get an appointment with any producer or director. You said this guy has come from Silicon Valley with some great ideas, you know, and he also has some Hollywood funders with him. You'll get appointment in 1 minute. So we are choosing everything which is not part of India. My only fight is that we have so much of goodness in our country. We have such great things there. Look at our architecture, look at our food, look at our diversity. I was asking them in the morning, what is diversity? It's a very misused term. In America and Europe, you'll find today everybody is talking about diversity. We grew up in diversity. Our parents, neighbors, school teachers never ever spoke about diversity. So what is diversity? Is diversity just lots of communities living in one geographical area but never interacting with each other? Is that diversity? Or diversity is when your neighbor is a Muslim, somebody is a Christian, somebody is a Tamil, somebody is Brahmin, somebody is rich, somebody is poor, and throughout the day you have to interact with them and work with them all the time. Which one is diversity? I have no answer to that. But in India, the diversity means interacting with people and living with them. Rest of the world, it means avoiding lawsuits, being politically correct. Today, free speech in India means nightmare. It means lawyers. Free speech, I spoke to lots of people in last 10 days. The minute you say free speech, people think about lawyers. If I say this, what will happen? If I say that, what will happen? This is not free speech. Free speech is when you make a film like Buddha in a traffic jam. Okay? And people say, fine, it's also a point of view. It used to happen. We have made all kinds of movies. Look at the work of Shyam Benegals and Govind Nilan, we have made very anti-establishment films, but nobody banned them. Nobody said we won't see your film just because you are making a film about Indian society and Indian villages. But here I was stopped. They said you can't show this film. You can't show this film because we create the narrative, you cannot challenge our narrative. And just to give you an example, you will never ever find a middle class Indian talking about free speech. Because to him, yes, there is free speech. What's there to talk about? I can say anything I want to say. Who talks about free speech? All the time who talks about free speech? People who do not believe in free speech. The leftists, the so-called liberal community. You say anything against them, they gang up and they start lynching you. I have experienced it when we go into question answer, I'll answer that question there. But it's very important who's controlling your mind. Today media is controlling our mind. Media is absolutely controlled by leftist and liberal people who do not want stability in any country, including America, because their entire philosophy, their ideology is based on class struggle. Poor versus rich, man versus woman. Haven't you seen they are always talking about man versus woman? Why? In India nobody talks about, when you were growing up, nobody talked about man versus woman. Man versus woman means your father versus your mother. But we always want that conflict. They want this conflict because when there is a conflict, then only you can take a moral upmanship. You take a moral high ground and you say, listen, we know it's bad to firecrackers should not be burst during Diwali. Water should not be wasted during Holi. And what is this regressive Karwa Chauth? Then you can take these moral stands. When you take moral stands, the poor middle class, the common person who's fighting for his survival, suddenly starts feeling that yes, this guy is saying something in English, sitting in London, he definitely knows better than me, so I'm guilty. Okay, come on, from this year, we should not waste water. And where is water wasted most? In golf courses. Isn't it? So that is the kind of hypocrisy I think we need to see, we should be able to see. We need to understand who's creating it. And it's very important for the young people to expose it. I am doing it for last 2 years. Yes, it's a very difficult path. It's not an easy path. But somebody has to do it. And I think all these people, Alakshan, people like you, in fact all your friends, you must never shy away or never feel embarrassed about really glorifying this country, because the biggest mistake we have made is we never spoke about ourselves. In a world, nobody is saying that you are a great country. Nobody is saying that yes, Hinduism is a great culture. So who's going to do it? We have to do it ourselves. You don't have to be expansionist. We are not killing anybody. We are not saying convert into Hinduism. All we are saying, please respect us for what we are. We are not that picture which you showed me in the morning. We are not that. Yesterday I was on Google and Facebook. I couldn't find any white faces there. So I asked them, I mean, is it a racist company? I asked the Facebook guy, what is happening here? You employ only Asians? So the people who say, there was a speech I was listening of Zuckerberg somewhere. The people who say that we are the people who connect this world, they forget that actually it's us who are making this world connected. There's people like Alakshan sitting in Facebook who's connecting the world. In Google, there was Indian street food, there was Dakshin food and all those, and everybody is eating that, and there was a corner of big burgers and all that, and very few people were standing there in the line. It clearly shows our time has come. How our movies are going to change, we'll fight for that, don't worry. But sitting here, I think all of you have a responsibility not to bow down to these false narratives, dominant narratives against cow and all that. Before I end, I just want to tell you a small thing. You must be listening to this cow thing. You think that on Indian streets, everybody wants to protect cows and therefore they are killing people. Do you feel that way? Aren't those the news you hear? Let me tell you, this is all fake, this is all false narrative. I have a village in UP where I come from, though I have never lived there. My father used to live there. My father died a few years ago, and I got to know we have some land in that village. And I also got to know that we have some cattle. And I remember playing with them because in India, a cow is like a family member. तो उसके बच्चे होते हैं, उनको भी you adopt, उनके बच्चे होते हैं, they are like family members, and there are generations of cows, you remember that. So I remember that some cows, I have played with them today, they have grown, they have kids and all that. So I called to say, भाई ये सब कैसे करें, who's going to take care of these cows and all those things, what's going to happen? So they said, sir, don't worry, they are being properly looked after for last 10 years. So I said, who looks after them? Give me a guess, who looks after these cows? वो तो अभी आए हैं. The Julaha, you know who's a Julaha? Weaver. The weaver is called Julaha. The Julahas are always Muslims, necessarily Muslims. A Muslim family looks after the cows of my house. In most of UP and Bihar, you will find when these cows are smuggled, a lot of Muslims save them because they also treat them like their mothers. That is Indian culture. But if you read newspapers and if you look at television, you will find that all Muslims eat beef and all Hindus are killing Muslims because they want to protect cows. That is the narrative. Now choice is yours. You want to believe in that narrative or the narrative I have told you just now about the cows. Absolutely wrong narrative. Because the media is controlled by people outside India, not from people inside India. Almost 70 to 80% stakes in Indian media are in Gulf, in Middle East. It's the Middle East money which controls most of it. Then there is Chinese money. And there, of course, there is Western money. Tell me, why would they want to stop the third fastest growing economy in the world? Give me one reason why would they like to stop emerging new Hindu Rashtra. Not by Hindu Rashtra I mean a regressive Rashtra, I mean a progressive Hindu Rashtra, which basically brings Indian values again. Why would anybody like to stop them? So there are lots of people fighting India from outside and inside, and in these times it is very critical that people like you and me, whatever we are doing, spend a couple of hours in a week. I know here time is very precious, but you invest that time and you bring about the correctness of the narrative. Correct it. It won't be corrected. Who will do it if you won't do it? And if you don't do it now, I think it's going to be very difficult times where people will stop believing in their own religion, their own culture, their own society. And the biggest danger is going to be that the woman we are talking about as Shakti will again become Sati. And again we will have a certain kind of mafia which will take over our films and television. And I think that day has to be stopped. Thank you very much.